Hotels exist in a strange space, hundreds of strangers passing through the same rooms, the same beds, leaving behind things you can't see. Tonight, 3 people checked in. None of them expected to find what was already waiting. The third story, I want to warn you about the third story. It's not about what someone found in the room. It's about what the room already knew about them. Stay with me. Check out 3:14 a.m. I was doing a sales run through Central Ohio in late October. Columbus to Dayton, then back up through Springfield. Nothing glamorous. A reimbursable hotel room and a Tuesday night alone with a gas station sandwich. I checked into a La Quinta off I-70 around 9:30 p.m. 3rd floor, end of the hall. Room 317. The clerk barely looked up. She slid me the keycard and told me the elevator was slow. The room was fine. That's the thing, it was completely, unremarkably fine. Standard carpet, standard art print above the bed, that particular smell every hotel has that isn't unpleasant but isn't anything either. I ate my sandwich. I watched 20 minutes of a college football game I didn't care about. I fell asleep with the TV on. That's important. I always do that in hotels. I woke up at 3:14 a.m. Not gradually. All at once, like something had thrown a switch. The TV was off. I hadn't turned it off. I lay still for a moment. The room was dark except for the red numerals on the bedside clock and a thin line of parking lot light under the curtain. I told myself the TV had a sleep timer. I almost believed it. Then I heard the breathing. It was slow. Measured. Coming from the corner of the room, the corner opposite the bathroom, where there was a small upholstered chair I had draped my jacket over. I didn't move. The breathing continued. In. Out. Unhurried. Like someone who had been sitting there for a long time and was perfectly comfortable. I reached sideways and hit the lamp switch. The room flooded with light. The chair was empty. My jacket was on the floor beneath it. I checked the bathroom. I checked the closet, one of those open rail closets with nowhere to hide. I checked under the bed. Nothing. The deadbolt was still engaged from the inside. The security latch was still flipped. I didn't sleep again. I sat with my back against the headboard and the lamp on until 6 a.m., and then I packed my bag and checked out. At the desk, I asked the morning clerk, almost as an afterthought, if anything had ever been reported about room 317. She stopped typing. She didn't look at me right away. When she did, her expression was neutral in a way that felt practiced. "We don't have a room 317, she said. I showed her my keycard. She looked at it for a moment. "That's a 312 key, she said. The ink on those fades. 3rd floor, middle of the hall." I didn't argue. I don't know if she was right. I know which end of the hall I was on. I've stayed in maybe 200 hotels since then. I don't put my jacket on the chair anymore. That next story comes from a couple in North Carolina who, unlike our first narrator, weren't alone, and somehow, that made it worse. The guest in 204. My husband and I drove up to Asheville, North Carolina for our anniversary, late September 2019. We booked a smaller inn on the north side of town. Independently owned, the kind of place with a clawfoot tub in the room and a breakfast menu slid under your door at night. We were in room 206. The inn had maybe 14 rooms total, spread across 2 floors of a converted Victorian house. Quiet. Charming. Exactly what we wanted. The first night was perfect. Dinner on Lexington, wine, back to the room by 11. I remember thinking, this is what a vacation is supposed to feel like. I woke up at some point in the early morning to the sound of movement in the room next door. Room 204. Not loud movement. Not alarming. Footsteps, slow and even, crossing the floor. Then stopping. Then crossing back. Like someone pacing. I didn't think much of it. Thin walls, old house, fellow guest. I went back to sleep. At breakfast the next morning, I mentioned to the woman running the inn, a woman named Carol, maybe 60, with reading glasses on a beaded chain. I mentioned the neighbor in 204 had been up early. Carol set down the coffee pot. 204 is closed, she said. Has been since June. The floor in there is being redone. There's no furniture in that room. I looked at my husband. He looked at me. I heard it too, he said. He hadn't mentioned it that morning. He told me later he hadn't wanted to ruin the trip. Carol was quiet for a moment. She refilled my cup without me asking. Old houses settle, she said finally. Then she went back to the kitchen. We checked out that afternoon, a day early. I went back to the inn's website about 6 months later, looking at reviews, not entirely sure what I was looking for. There was a review from 2016, 3 years before our trip, from a guest who had stayed in room 206. She mentioned waking up to footsteps in the room next door. She said she'd asked about it at breakfast. She wrote, the owner told me 204 had been closed for renovation. I didn't ask any more questions. The renovation, apparently, had been ongoing for at least 3 years. I don't know if Carol ever finished it. The inn's listing disappeared sometime in 2021. The website is gone. The last story was submitted without a last name, and after you hear it, you'll understand why. It used my name. I want to be very precise about the details here, because I've gone over them many times and I need you to understand that I am not misremembering this. I was alone. February 2022. Business trip to Memphis, Tennessee. I work in logistics compliance. It's not interesting. I checked into a mid-range chain hotel near the airport. The kind of place where every room is the same and the hallways smell like industrial cleaner and old carpet. Room 511. 5th floor. I checked in under my own name. I'll keep that private, but it matters that it was on the reservation. I had dinner at the hotel restaurant. I was at the bar alone, which I don't love, but I had work to finish and the alternative was room service. I spoke to the bartender for maybe 10 minutes. I told him I was in logistics. I didn't tell him my name. I went upstairs around 8:30. I did 2 hours of work. I showered. I was in bed by 11. At 1:20 a.m., my room phone rang. Hotel room phones almost never ring. I sat up. I stared at it. It rang 4 times and I picked it up. There was a voice. I can only describe it as unhurried. Like someone reading from something, not robotic, but deliberate. Considered. It said my name. My first name. Then it said, "Don't turn on the light." That was all. I turned on the light. The room was empty. The deadbolt and the security latch were both engaged. The window was sealed. It was that kind of hotel, the kind where the windows don't open. I called the front desk. They told me no calls had been placed to room 511 that night. Not from inside the hotel and not from outside. They offered to move me to a different room. I said yes. The new room was on the 3rd floor. I didn't sleep. In the morning I checked out and I sat in my rental car in the parking garage and I thought about the voice. Here is what I could not resolve then and cannot resolve now. I had not told anyone at that hotel my name. Not the front desk agent, not the bartender. I had paid with a corporate card that had my company name on it, not my personal name. My name was on the reservation in the system. That is the only place it existed in that building. I don't know who accessed the reservation. I don't know who placed the call that the front desk says was never placed. What I keep coming back to, the thing that doesn't let me frame this as a prank or a glitch or a crossed line, is the instruction. Don't turn on the light. Whoever it was expected me to obey. And for 3 full seconds, sitting in the dark in a room I was alone in, I almost did. 3 rooms. 3 nights. Nothing fully explained, and I think that's what stays with you. Not the answers, but the absence of them. If you've ever stayed somewhere and felt, in a way you couldn't justify, that you were not the only one there, I'd like to hear about it. Leave it in the comments. New stories arrive every day. Subscribe if you want them. Whatever called room 511 that night knew to wait until the lights were off.